Why don't we see ghosts every day? The truth is, ghosts are around us all the time. But most hauntings are so small, they go unnoticed. For example, a pen lid, a gravel, a trapped sound, a child's ball or balls, a wheeled bin. Hello, I'm Vincent Dooley. Welcome to the next in my series exploring the rare and wonderful supernatural gifts known as the talents. Later in this episode, do you ever have nightmares after eating cheese? You might have eaten a ghost. Even the weakest ghosts can possess cheese quite easily, due to the living bacteria in the cheese. But what is a ghost? Well, they were once just like us.
This is the emergency podcast system. This is not a test. Movies are bombing all over the country. They are posing as movies you already know. They may already be in your theaters, your neighbor's home, or even your own. Do not panic. Specialists have been dispatched. They will help you identify these pretenders and defend you against this invasion of the remake. Please stand by for further instructions.
Welcome to the Invasion of the Remake podcast. I'm your host, Jason Bishop, and with me today, of course, is Sam Stepanenko and Trish Coughlin.
Hello.
Recovering from the trauma.
Yes, this is part 2 of 31 Days of Horror. If you haven't heard part 1, stop this now and go listen to part 1, because this is going to be covering our second half of October, where we watch 31 horror movies over 31 days that we've never seen before. We're giving you the report card over these 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And maybe some stuff for your list for next year.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Well, hopefully this will tell you which ones to watch and which ones to avoid. And I don't know about you, but my second half really kind of wraps up. I thought first half I had some decent stuff for sure, but second half gets really good.
Mine was hit and miss.
Yeah, you hinted at it last week where your part 2 is like looking pretty awful for a little bit.
It yo-yos all over the place. But,
right.
I mean, that's part of the fun, right?
It is.
Yeah.
Finding some of those hidden gems and then finding those hidden turds.
Yeah. There's a lot of going through the bad experiences to get to the good experiences.
I mean, the bad experiences are fun in their own way.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how much pre-research you do when you go in. Like, I do try to watch the trailers of things prior to committing to a full hour and a half to 2 hours.
Good idea.
I just suck it up, to be honest with you. I just like, okay, this is what I'm watching.
Mm-hmm.
I will check IMDb ratings sometimes. If they're under a 5, I'm like, maybe not.
Yeah, to be honest, if they're over a 5, then I might be more willing to check it out. Because let's face it, even really good horror is lucky to rate over a 7. That's like exceptional.
Yes.
Because people are just dicks to horror.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah, and some of it, yes, unfairly, I think, in a lot of cases.
Yeah, so if it breaks a 7, it's really good. If it's breaking like 5.5, it's probably pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it's in a 6, it's pretty safe.
Yeah, if it's the 4.5 to 5, I'll go with.
Yeah, I think we'll be giving you a little more honest ratings, not marred by people who watch horror and don't like it.
Yes.
Like, I don't understand why you're doing a review on a genre you don't like, but you're just souring it for the rest of us who do.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Like, if you're a masochist, go out and get whipped by somebody. Don't watch horror.
You can pay for somebody for that.
Exactly. There's people who will do it for you.
For free.
There'll be safe words. It'll work out. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Join a club.
If you want to explore it, it's available to you. Just know that.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
But we also have a lot of fans out there who like to join us in 31 Days of Horror. And like our friend Xavier, who's done it with us pretty much every year now.
Pretty much, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and he did send me his list, unlike a lot of you who I asked you to send me your lists, but he was kind enough to pass it along, so I'm going to be kind enough to read it out to you before we get into our second half.
Awesome.
And there's some from both of us on there as well, I think that we watched in the first half for sure.
Oh, for sure, or in other years. He did, for his first three, he did All Hallows Eve 1, 2, and 3, the horror anthologies. And, of course, Sam covered that last week with the first one featuring Art the Clown from Terrifier and different characters that had kind of surrounded in the second one. I think there's a pumpkin-headed killer in one of them.
Yeah, I didn't do the second and third one because I didn't want to waste them all in 1 year.
Yeah, no, I've only ever seen the first one. Number 4 was The Ranger. Number 5 was Mayhem. I need to check that out. It's been on my list for a while, and I keep forgetting about it. It would have been good for that Office horror special we did last year. With
that's been on my list for a long time, too. And I did The Ranger, and I really liked it.
Okay.
It was last year for me.
Mandy, which I really liked. It's a weird movie, and I don't think you guys agree with me, do you?
I
got hints of that last
I haven't seen Mandy.
Oh, okay.
Yet.
Yeah, nor have I. I was going to put it for my last movie of the year. I'm like, nah, Jay did it already, so I'll just watch it on my own time.
Right. Yeah, I really dug Mandy. Lords of Chaos was his next one, followed by In the Tall Grass, which Trish and I both talked about last week, followed by Overlord, which I talked about. We might have even done this in the same order or pretty close. I think I did Overlord just before in the Tall Grass, but I don't know how he liked it. I think he liked it more than I did. I didn't care for it that much. Tigers Are Not Afraid was his next one. Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, which I think you covered last year, didn't you?
I did. It was really good.
The Perfection, which I will be talking about later today.
Ooh.
The Ritual, which I talked about last year. Anna and the Apocalypse, which Sam talked about last week. 3 from Hell, which I will also be talking about later today. Trucks, which he was kind enough, or not so kind enough to remind us, was a remake of Maximum Overdrive.
Well, it wasn't a remake. It was a TV movie based on the Stephen King short story.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, technically, I guess you considered a remake, but
he did kind of take us to task for remaking Maximum Overdrive and not comparing it to Trucks.
Well,
but I didn't want to do that.
And we did. To be honest, we didn't know. I think we found out shortly after, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I could use my TV.
Our TV rule was in effect.
Was in effect, but we have broken that rule on some occasions.
Yeah.
So whatever, deal with it.
There are rules, we can break them.
That's right.
Yeah.
His next one was The Amityville Murders, followed by Open Water 3 Cage Dive.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I've only seen the first one.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those, actually.
They're very good.
Surprised there's 3 of them. Followed by The Furies, and then Incident in a Ghost Land.
Ooh.
Boar, which
saw that.
John Garrett told us about when we interviewed him, actually.
I think we've actually seen it yet.
No.
It's on Shudder.
You Might Be the Killer was another one. Dementia 13, the remake. And I held off deliberately because at some point we are going to cover that on our own. Trilogy of Terror 2, which I am unaware of. Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Huh.
Extraordinary, which I know is on both of our lists, Trish and I. The Haunting of Sharon Tate, which I wish I would have talked to him beforehand and told him not to bother. If you want to see a good Sharon Tate movie, you got to go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Well, it's Tarantino. I mean, it's bound to be good regardless. Followed by Nightmare Cinema, which I covered last week and really adored, and I do believe it's on Trish's this week.
It was late. The party.
Lycan is his next one, followed by number 31, Sorority Party Massacre.
What a strange one to end on.
Yeah.
Was that like a sort of knockoff of the Slumber Party Massacre?
I do believe there were a bunch of different ones like that. I think Slumber Party Massacre's been around for a while. It might have even been remade.
Ooh.
I'd have to check it out, but I seem to remember a Slumber Party Massacre that was fairly recent.
Well, you mean Sorority Party Massacre?
No, we did Slumber Party Massacre.
You're right. Sorority Party Massacre. Sorry.
Yeah, because we did Slumber Party.
Yeah, we did Slumber Party
last year for Women in Horror Month.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I have a feeling there's a bunch of something party massacres out there on the heels of the success of Slumber Party Massacre.
Oh, yeah, just to have all these other parties like Bachelorette Party Massacre, Gender Reveal Party Massacre.
Oh, we need to do that. They deserve a massacre.
Baby shower massacre.
Nice gender reveal party. Stupidest fucking trend ever.
Tupperware party massacre.
Tupperware party massacre. Oh, that would be so
That
good.
would be so good.
Sex toy party massacre.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like a porn parody, and I'm all
Actually,
aboard.
no. I don't think it has
I'll
to
watch
be.
that too.
I think I will. I can make it without making it a sex one.
You can, but I still want the porn parody.
Fair.
Oh yeah, that's why we make the first one.
It could actually exist, as far as we know.
Yeah, for all we know, yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah.
It's not like we're aficionados or something like that.
No.
What's that pyramid scheme where people like sell stuff? Amway massacre.
If you want to see one of these, please let us know on our social
We want to
media.
do it.
Yeah. That's right. Okay, we got a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. I do believe it was my turn where we
Yes.
left off. So what we're doing this week, we're going to do our next date, so 17 through 24, followed by our final 7, and we're just going to revolve around the room again as we did last week. Mm-hmm. So number 17, which Trish and I did cover in fair length last week, was The Love Witch, which was a 60s pastiche in ode to these Hammer films of the 60s, and was
so well executed.
brilliantly done. So I'm not going to get into great detail about it, but
Watch it. Just watch it.
It is great. Anna Biller is definitely somebody to watch for her next feature, for sure. Number 18 was something I bought at Calgary Expo a few years ago, and I've
Ooh.
been threatening to remake, and I'm glad I just kind of sat down and watched it. I'm like, maybe not. And this was Santo and the Blue Demon versus Dracula and the Wolfman from Mexico. It is part of these luchador horror movies that really only reside in Mexico, and is something I've fascinated with. I like wrestling in general, but I'm fascinated by lucha wrestling and then the mythos behind the masks that they like to build, and they became mass celebrities in a lot of ways, especially back then.
And Jay has a collection of them.
Yes.
I do have a few masks, yes. And this was directed by Miguel M. Delgado, starring Santo and Blue Demon, because at the time, nobody knew their names. So, as themselves, it is dumb fun. They're supposed to protect this dude, this archaeologist's family, because he's got some relic that can kill the supernatural. And hey, guess what? The Wolfman and Dracula have been resurrected and have taken this dude and killed him. So now they have to honor this thing. And their way of protecting them is to play cards a lot and not watch them. I'm like, so this is what's going to happen. You guys suck at your job. No wonder you're wrestlers.
Oh, no. Is there at least a nugget of a good idea in there?
There's some. It's kind of fun if you just kind of move that aside. Like you roll your eye, you wind up rolling your eyes a lot. It's like, oh god, this is so bad.
I have one of those for sure.
Me too.
But it's 73, so I tend to forgive it a little bit. Mexican film being done on the cheap, at least then. And this is kind of their version of Universal Monsters, and it's kind of done with the same budgets, and despite being 40 years later.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it, but I certainly can't give it a good rating. 5 out of 10 is the best I can award it.
All right.
Number 19 was The Tunnel by Carlo Ledesma and writers Enzo Tedeschi and Julian Harvey, starring Belle Delia, Andy Rodery, and Steve Davis. This is kind of found footage style. It's about TV reporters investigating water recycling and a government cover-up into the investigation into the tunnels under Sydney. And this was something that actually happened as far as the conspiracies and stuff about water recycling, and that's still a topic of discussion in Australia. So it's something certainly Australians could identify with. The interesting part of this film, it was crowdfunded for about $135,000, and it was officially released on BitTorrent, so you could completely legally download it through torrent sites.
Oh, wow.
That is interesting.
It was an interesting model. So when you see stuff like that, you're like, oh, it can't be good. But it is.
Oh,
it's
wow.
really good. I had to give this sucker an 8 out of 10. It's really engaging. It builds the tension up and up and up as it goes. And, of course, the
Awesome.
darkness probably hides the flaws of the film as well. But it's well acted. And
Awesome.
given its distribution model, I'm like, well, that's weird. They certainly probably weren't out to get money, but if they wanted to use it to get recognized, I guess that's a great way to do it because it probably got into a lot of people's hands.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really interesting movie. I really enjoyed it, and it was quite a surprise, especially given its release. You would have thought this would have been some terrible student film level kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a neat surprise. Number 20, which I know is on Trish's list, is Little Monsters, written and directed by Abe Forsyth, starring Lupita Nyong'o, Josh Gad, Alexander England, and Nadia Townsend. This was a lot of fun. This is about, again, this is another Australian movie, by the way, US, UK, Australian joint. And it's about a washed-up musician who kind of teams up with this teacher,
Kindergarten teacher.
kindergarten teacher, because he's got nothing better to do. Really, he's
yeah.
basically just trying to get in her pants because he's like, oh
Like
man, she's hot.
everybody else.
Like
And
everybody
she
else,
is.
and she's hot. Yeah, absolutely. And they've teamed up to protect this class that's gone on this field trip
Yep.
to this zoo / almost amusement park. And there's this
Children's entertainer.
Yeah, this children entertainer in Josh Gad,
Yeah.
who's turns out to be a real piece of work.
Oh, giant asshole.
And this all happens during a zombie outbreak.
Yep, because it's near a military facility.
Yes, where their zombie outbreak has escaped the facility and started affecting the outside world. There's this one great bit in the movie where the military shows up, and what are we dealing with? Zombies, fast ones or slow ones? So I love that they acknowledge that
Yep.
the zombies trope and the genre in general has changed. And they're like, oh, thank God they're slow.
Yeah. Good, I'm glad they're slow.
Yeah, and for a horror comedy, this one's right up there. This was
Yeah.
really good. This was a Hulu release.
Yeah.
And God, Lupita Nyong'o is just really good at choosing really good scripts.
Yeah, and she's like she walks this line between being just that delightful kindergarten school teacher and keeping the kids' spirits up and
And a
just
badass.
slaughtering people. It's so amazing.
Highly, highly recommend this movie.
Yeah, sounds like fun. It was one of those ones that I had considered, and I'm like, it's probably going to be on at least one other list, so I didn't, especially considering how many J's I stepped on already this year.
Oh, but watch it in your free time. It's
Yeah,
so
it was
fun.
what I stumbled upon, and I'm like, yeah, this was really, really good. 9 out of 10
Yes,
is that strong.
in agreement.
Number 21 was a combo, and Sam and I talked about it in depth last week, was The Devil's Carnival from 2012, which is just under an hour. That's why I paired it with its sequel, Alleluia, The Devil's Carnival from 2016. And really enjoyed both of them. Great horror musicals. The second
They
one's a bit
look
too long.
so good.
They do, yeah.
Nice.
So I'm not going to go into too much repeat territory with that, but go check it out. If you're fans of Repo the Genetic Opera, it's the same people. And,
I like them better. I actually enjoyed them more than I like Repo.
and I don't know if you know this, the writer and the guy who plays the devil, Terrence Zidonic, he's got a YouTube channel called American Murder Songs.
I
So-
did know about it. I haven't checked it
Okay.
out yet, but I did know about it.
Yeah, so I haven't come across any videos yet, but he's kind of got them in chapters of this kind of dark American history.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so there's cannibalism and all sorts of cool stuff that they're singing about, and still done in that kind of opera, dark opera that he's been doing. So
Wow.
highly recommend that channel in general.
Nice.
I'm not sure if I gave my rating last week on those, but Devil's Carnival, the first one I gave an 8 out of 10, and the sequel, Alleluia, I gave a 7 out of 10.
And yeah, we were in agreement there that the first one is the stronger of the two.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Number 22 was, because I had skipped ahead and did Annabelle Comes Home, I wanted to watch Annabelle Creation because everybody said it was really good. And it is. It is the origin of this doll. It's a doll maker welcomes children from a shuttered orphanage, and they become targeted by Annabelle, who we see some of the stuff they talk about in The Conjuring in the first Annabelle movie, where they thought it was their dead daughter, and we do see what happens there. And it's really this demon out to eat souls
Yeah.
and kill you dead. So this one's the darkest of the three.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And is really well
Children
put
in
together.
jeopardy.
I still like Annabelle Comes Home a little bit more just because it's fun. This one's really dark, though,
Yeah.
and it's really strong, really well written, directed by David F. Sandberg, did really good job. Gary Doberman wrote it. 8 out of 10.
Nice.
It's a really strong entry into the Conjuring world in general. And it's weird how these spin-offs always start off weak and get stronger, so... I don't know how The Nun did in the theaters, but...
Oh, The Nun was terrible.
Yeah, you did not like it. I have yet to see it, but
Here's
I'm
hoping
kind of
it
looking
gets
forward
better.
to a sequel.
Yeah.
Because they seem to pick up the steam on the second one, because Curse of La Llorona here is not so good either.
It's, you know what? It's much, much better than The Nun.
Ooh, that's saying a lot, actually.
Yep, it is.
I was just about to say exactly that.
But it's a great airplane movie, just FYI.
Number 23 is Three from Hell, written and directed by Rob Zombie. This is, of course, sequel to House of Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, bringing back the Firefly family, starring Sherry Moon Zombie, Bill Moseley, Sid Haig in a very small role because he was very sick at the time, and the movie changed probably very drastically during filming when they found out he was really sick, and they killed off the character really quickly within the film. Because of that, the movie is kind of aimless. It feels like it meanders, and it kind of falls into the same patterns from Devil's Rejects, but it takes a little while to get there. There's some interesting characters, mind you, but overall it feels kind of pointless. That's probably because he was near shooting and nobody was telling him about Sid Haig, and they couldn't reschedule at this point, so they had to do a sudden rewrite and brought in a brother we didn't know about.
Yeah. Well, they were doing rewrites as they were shooting.
Oh, I'm absolutely sure that was going
because
on.
apparently Sid was thinking that he was going to be able to come back, and then there were insurance problems because of his health, and there's no way they're going to let him shoot. They managed to get a release for 1 day of shooting. That's why he's in it so little, and they had to rewrite it so much, was because right up until they started shooting, they were reducing his role, but they didn't realize how much until the day the day they started shooting. It's like, oh, well, we only get 1 day with him.
Yeah, and the original script called for a lot of Sid.
Yeah.
From what I understood. So it's not exactly the film that Rob Zombie was going for, which is unfortunate. I give it a 6 out of 10, and I think that's kind of being forgiving. After 31 and now this one, he's been on a bit of a slump as of late. But I forgive it on this one because it's kind of shooting
Some
around
of it was
some
out of his
misfortunes.
hands.
Yeah.
And when you lose arguably who I think is the most talented character in that entire series.
And there were character changes as well, but that happened to Devil's Rejects, I think, as well. Like, it just feels like every time he does this, the characters shift quite a bit, especially Sherry Moon Zombie's character. Her character was always insane, but she's like overly insane in this one. Almost like they were trying to turn her into Harley Quinn.
Yeah, Baby, right?
Yeah, Baby.
Yeah, my favorite iteration of her was in Devil's Rejects.
Yeah.
I think that was she had just the right balance.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Three from Hell yet, but again, because I knew it was going to be on somebody's list this year. And I'd read so much, I'm like, that's kind of a me time watch.
Yeah, so not great. And number 24 was The Tourist Trap from 1979.
Ooh.
Written and directed by David Schmoller, who directed the original Puppet Master, and written by J. Larry Carroll. This one starred Chuck Connors, and I was kind of baffled that he was even in this, but
But he was so good.
he was really good. Jocelyn Jones, John Van Ness, Robin Sherwood, and Tanya Roberts, of all people.
Really?
In a very early appearance. And I think that this was one of her strongest performances, actually.
Yeah, it is. You and I wound up watching it on the same day, but you kind
At the same time.
At the same day on the same time, but you axed it off there just to be kind to me.
How is it? It sounds fun.
It is a blast.
This is about a telekinetic psychopath who uses mannequins to terrorize a group of teenagers. This is also produced by Charles Band pre-Full Moon.
Awesome.
But this is probably one of the best things that ever came out of that company. Out of anything, any of the companies Charles Band's had. And he's had a few.
Well, it's funny because I was watching it and my wife comes downstairs and she goes, "What are you watching? This looks familiar." I'm like, "I'm watching Tourist Trap." She goes, "I love this movie." She starts fucking quoting it.
Oh, wow.
In a very creepy voice, too. She's like, "Why can't we be friends?" I'm like, "Good Lord."
And considering that this movie does have genuine creep factor, but it's actually only a PG movie. Which
it's not gory.
No, it's
Nice.
not gory at all, which I think kind of hurt the film on its initial release in the 70s when horror
Slashers
was
were coming
doing
up.
really well as R-rated. But this is really solid. It is really
the
good.
masks and the mannequins were so creepy.
Yeah.
Like this is, I'd love to remake this one.
Yeah, and maybe we
Cool.
will do this one down the road. This was exceptional.
Awesome.
I gave it an 8 out of 10. It was a
I
great
would
way
agree with you on that one.
Great
Yeah.
way to end the week, actually.
That sounds like one that's going to be on my watch on my own list.
Yeah, so overall, Santo and the Blue Demon versus Dracula the Wolfman was probably my weakest of the week. Little Monsters was definitely the best. So,
So fun.
That was my week. But overall, pretty good. Most of this was solid. I was still amping up. This was still kind of an up and down week for me, though.
Nice.
All right, Trish, what do you got?
All right. So my week was actually, it was pretty good. I think it was a fairly strong week overall. I had some stinkers, but I had some really good ones. So it all evened out. So my number 17 was Little Monsters.
Very good.
Which was I just loved it. Lupita Nyong'o should be in all the things. It's the delight at somebody trying to remain so cheery in a zombie apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
So fun. So that was good. I mean, we discussed it earlier. And then 18 was Chopping Mall.
Yes, we did that just a couple weeks ago, so go check out that episode.
Yep. So that I won't get into that because that's the other thing.
Yeah, we remade it. We talked about it in depth
Very much so.
with guests.
With guests.
Yes.
Yes. And then number 19 was Dead of Night from 1979. And it's a anthology horror, but it's more of, there was a lot of it which was sort of more emotional. Like it was more Twilight Zone-y than horror. Because there's one where like Ed Begley Jr. fixes up this old car, but then it transports him back in time. And there's like a few, that was the most memorable one. They weren't particularly memorable things, but they were quite interesting. So it's not a scary movie, but it's enjoyable.
Cool.
Then Extraordinary from 2019, an Irish film that is absolutely amazing. It's so fun.
I also did this in my last week, and it is fabulous. If you're a fan of something like Shaun of the Dead, and
Yeah.
it's a little sillier, but there's a lot going for this one. I love how your main character is just an ordinary person. Like, she looks average, and it's not this stunning
And she's just a
model.
driving instructor, and she's just trying to just live her life.
Yes, driving instructor who accidentally killed her father and has avoided her gifts as a medium.
I'm sorry for slaughtering you, Daddy. And then so she meets up with this other guy who his wife will not leave them alone. Like
Yeah.
she's the unfinished
And this
business.
also continued my trend of rich Satanists.
Yes.
Satanists, they live large. They live big.
Really do. Like literally in a castle.
If movies have told me anything, Satanism pays.
It really does. It really does. And if you're a virgin, just make sure there's no Satanists around because they're really into that.
Yeah.
Or just give it up and get it done with so you're safe.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
And if you want little snippets, that beginning bit and the little cuts I'm going to do in the middle and at the end, they are from this movie.
Yes, it's just it's so wonderful. I like. There's a bit where didn't know what I was in for until at one point the lead character, and I'm not giving away too much, but he wakes up in the morning and goes to have a shower, and like there's steam on the mirror, and he closes the one side of it. It's like, you must pay, and then he closes the other side, the car tax.
Yes, he's being haunted by his dead wife who won't let him eat donuts.
Won't let him eat donuts. Dresses like lays out his clothes for him still.
I love when they occasionally show what an actual ghost looks like, and they're literally people with sheets over them with the eyes cut out. I'm like, this is amazing.
Hello, ghosts.
It's like benign ghosts that move pens and
Moving branches.
Charlie Brown ghosts?
Oh yeah, there's one that was like haunting a bin.
yes, yeah, it was great. Or sounds of the past that are hiding in drawers, and
So good.
it is excellent.
Highly recommend. So yeah, that if I were giving ratings, that's like 9 out of 10. I'm really loving it.
That is exactly what I gave it.
Awesome. And then 21 was Digging Up the Marrow from 2015.
I have seen Digging Up the Marrow.
Yeah, well, because I'm like Ray Wise. I will watch basically anything with Ray Wise.
It's an Adam Green movie.
It is, but it's sort of like it's that meta. He's Adam Green playing a version of Adam Green, trying to do a documentary on supernatural creatures.
If you wanted to compare it to another movie, he's doing a documentary on the Nightbreed.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But these creatures are, and I wish I could remember, they are actually created from an artist's like an actual artist who does weird things.
Aren't they? They're like he says, like all the deformed babies, they get taken.
Yeah, but
there.
their look is inspired by, or is done by an actual artist.
Yes,
who does weird things, and I can't remember his name, unfortunately, because that was a few years ago.
Yeah,
when I watched that, but
it's kind of creepy and enjoyable.
Yeah, I bought that directly off Ada Gleam's site, and it was good.
It was really good.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Number 22 was Portal from 2019, which was another Portal I wanted to do, but this ended up being a different Portal from 2019.
This is what I said last week. You got to be careful what you're looking for, because when I did Bliss, there's a shit ton of them. Thankfully, I found mine pretty quickly. But
if yours starts with a heavy fog, you're watching the bad one. This is the bad one. The idea is like an extended Twilight Zone episode, and there's really only one actor that is good. Everybody else pretty much sucks.
Oh, no.
It's sort of like, I can imagine how frustrated this person would be. I think that's why he's really bringing it, because he's just so angry.
It's like, why'd you put me in this movie with all these other shitty actors?
Yes, he's kind of like he's so frustrated. I want to leave this place. Yes, of course you do.
He's just making up for the rest of it, trying, right?
And it's also part of my kind of theme of the month of witches, and witches fucking up. So that's pretty much it.
So don't recommend that one?
Not this version.
Okay.
23 was Limbo from 2019.
Oh, that is terrifying. I hate doing the limbo.
Well, with your bad back, I'm not surprised.
Oh, absolutely. We were just discussing before we started.
It depends on the day.
It's just the angle that your back has to be at that makes the problem.
Yeah.
It's okay. My bad knees, limbo's terrifying for me too. So.
It is terrifying. But different limbo.
We're middle age. All our joints aren't conducive to limbo.
I know. Got to get back into yoga. Try to get that suppleness.
I'm guessing this is the limbo that stands between heaven and hell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And you've got this one guy's there, and they've sent an angel down to kind of defend him. And there's this other guy's like, okay, so you can go, like, they're determining whether he belongs in heaven or hell. Mm-hmm. And so there's kind of like a little kind of mini court case, sort of defending your life-ish. And there's a demon played by, I think it's Robert Reel. He's an old guy with a mustache. He's so sweet. Mm-hmm. It's so fun to watch it because he's a demon, but he's just so delightful. Like he likes being in this room with these people. Like it seems he's very lonely. Like, the whole movie, my takeaway was like, oh, but he shouldn't be down in hell doing. He's very sweet. He's a nice demon, and all he wants is some friends.
Being a demon is a lonely job.
Yeah,
it really is. It's so funny because he takes delight in some things because he doesn't understand that they're bad or evil. There's a whole group of people where there's a big room. They take them to be like raped by demons with dicks the size of baseball bats.
Oh,
and the guy's like, "Well, that sounds terrible." I was like, "The demons like it."
Perspective, I guess.
He's like, "I thought that was the point."
That's funny.
Exactly. So yeah, there's this one guy, the angel's trying to like defend him, but he's really indefensible for his whole life. And there's kind of a twist at the end that shows you what the whole purpose was behind this. And there's another young actor in it, a young British actor. He does really good. He's very youthful, but that world weariness of an immortal being, he quite nails.
That is challenging.
And he does it so well. He does very well. So it's a nice watch. Like it's interesting enough. It's not great. It's fine.
Okay. I don't know if I'll bother with fine, but there's some interesting stuff there.
Yeah, like you watch it for the one demon. That's pretty much it. Just fast forward till you get to his spots. And the end credits are over him telling a kind of crazy joke about like a nun, a priest. He's got tons of nun jokes. That's the other running joke.
Okay, it sounds like this was a horror comedy that kind of missed the mark.
Yeah, it really did. And then 24 was Pet Sematary 2, and I didn't write down the year. I think it was like 1990 with
Edward Furlong.
Edward Furlong. It's Pet Sematary? It's a movie where the entire time I'm like, oh, so nobody learned a fucking thing. Great. Like, you know the story, you know how everything went wrong, but you continue to make the same mistakes.
Pet Sematary 2, like, I haven't seen it, but I got the feeling from what little I know about it is they just made the same movie over again, but badly.
Yes, but here's what they decided to do is he's new to town. His friend's dog gets killed, so they use it to bring back the dog. The dog has just gone insane and crazy, so I think they have to kill it again. But then they used it. They did one thing different, which I found interesting. They accidentally kill his stepfather, but to avoid getting in trouble, they use it to bring him back. Because, I mean, not a dead person, not a crime.
Okay.
So that's an interesting take on it. But yeah, Edward Furlong's trying to bring back his mother, and I'm like, ooh, no.
No, this was just a series of those movies where they were trying to capitalize on Edward Furlong's popularity from Terminator 2.
Pretty much.
I found that it fell flat. I mean, I watched it when it came out, and I found it really flat, and it just did not have anywhere near the depth that the original did.
No, it really didn't. It's very unmemorable. I remember only kind of key bits about it. I remember Clancy Brown being in it, and Goose from Top Gun.
Oh, Anthony Edwards?
Yes. You haven't watched a great movie when it's just like, ugh.
Yeah.
You don't remember anything.
Fair. Yeah, it sounds like something that would have gone direct to video or something back in the 90s.
Absolutely, but it did get a release.
Oh my gosh.
Because they wanted to make sure that they got the money out of it.
Yeah.
So for overall the week, it's a tough call. Extraordinary is like just an inch above Little Monsters, like just an eighth of an inch, a 16th of an inch.
I'm glad they didn't sit in the same week for me.
I know, they're so good, both of them.
They are.
But yeah, just Extraordinary is just that little bit better.
Yeah.
And then the low point was the bad Portal that you shouldn't watch.
Okay, before we get into Sam's, I'm going to share the trailer of Little Monsters with you because you should see this.
Aren't we having a super fun time on our trip to Pleasant Valley Farm?
Ready? Steady? Let's go. There must be something in the way.
Warning, this movie contains flesh-eating zombies, assault with a deadly guitar, strong language,
Fuck douchebag.
stop fucking swearing, firearms, disembowelment, death metal, gore, needle underlocking scenes, and Academy Award winner Lupita Nyong'o.
It might be a little much for everyone.
How do you like it, huh? Oh, God, what have I done? Little Monsters. Rated R.
All right, Sam, it's your turn.
Okay, so I started off my week with number 17, like everybody else, with another
Well,
one.
I'm glad your numbering is the same as ours.
Isn't it great, though? But this is another one where I accidentally, this was completely unintentional, where I stepped on one of Jay's go-to movies for this year. I watched Eyes Without a Face.
This one I was a little disappointed by because I was really looking for it. I'm like, how is it? How is it out of the 1960s he picked the same one I wanted to do? But that's fine. I was like, let him have it. Looks like an exceptional movie that at some point we're probably going to cover a little more in depth. But definitely worth talking about. From what I know about it, is one of these great horror movies that everybody should see.
And I totally agree. Everybody should see this. It is from 1960. It's a French film, so you do have to watch it dubbed or subtitled. I recommend subtitled, as always. It is such a visually appealing movie, and the story is... I mean, it's dated. I mean, it's 1960, but it is such a great story. So the story of a guy who's responsible for the disfigurement of his daughter, and she wears this mask which looks incredible. Like, even for 1960, it looks incredible. And it's really challenging because when she speaks, she's so expressionless because of this mask. But she's in torment because she has to wear this mask all the time. She doesn't look the same as she did. They never show you how disfigured she is. They take away the obvious terror or horror, which I think is wonderful. But he's trying to fix her. So he ends up murdering all these other young women who are about the same size and coloration as she is to try and transplant their face onto hers.
Wow.
And it is disturbing. And it comes to this incredible culmination at the end. Again, it is dated, and some of the things that they did in the film were kind of, they wouldn't stand up today. But I think a remake of it, as long as you're sort of very true to the story, I think a remake could be done really well and fix those little technical things, because story-wise it's perfect. It is truly wonderful.
You know what's funny though is it makes me think, didn't the first successful facial transplant happen in France?
Possibly.
That's so weird. It'd be like, maybe this is how they tested it.
I've seen other movies, and I wish I could remember them, about kind of surgeries gone wrong or these kind of
I was thinking American Mary while I was watching that.
This reminds me about a one with the dude who played Zorro.
Antonio Banderas. Yes, The Skin You're In, I think.
I think that's what it's called, The Skin You're In. And that one's a disturbing one as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Or the one, Mama or Mother, where the kids suspect that their mother who's come from with plastic
Good Night,
surgery,
Mommy.
Goodnight Mommy,
Yeah.
is not the same person.
That one was a great movie. I think I did that one last year. A great movie, and I recommend that one as well.
We could do an episode on these.
We could.
But yeah, I gave it a 7 out of 10. Again, mostly because some of it doesn't stand up anymore, but the story and that mask, oh my gosh, that mask. It is disturbing to see that mask. And I think if it were an English film, the mask would have been more disturbing because it's a little bit hard to reconcile the subtitles with the French if you don't understand French. So I think I would have given it a higher rating if it had been in it.
But at least you're getting a more honest performance out of him, because you're hearing the actors.
Well, and that was the challenge, though, is because
I don't know if
I
they would
understand
have rated
French.
any
I couldn't gauge her performance without having facial expression. And I think that's the challenge with watching a foreign language film with that type of setup.
Yeah.
But the father was just so unlikable, and he was so wonderful in that role.
Awesome.
Right. Okay, what's next?
Number 18 was Chopping Mall. Once again,
Yeah.
we've gone through that one in depth, so I'll just...
Yeah, go hit that episode up. That was just 2 weeks ago.
Number 19 was a movie called Aaron's Blood from 2016. This was really intriguing in terms of concept. It's the story of a young hemophiliac boy who gets injured and has to go for a blood transfusion that turns him into a vampire.
Ooh.
Great concept. And then it's his father's quest to sort of save his son.
I sense a butt coming.
Yeah.
But
Oh, God damn it.
there was pretty much no budget. And as a result, your casting sort of reflected that as well. I mean, it didn't require a huge budget because it wasn't like an effects-heavy movie. It was strictly performance-driven, which I really enjoyed. But the fact that the acting didn't meet the script made it a little tough to watch.
Right.
The lead actor was great. And the kid was quite good, but everybody else was just really flat.
That's a shame.
Yeah, so as a result, it only gets a 5 out of 10. But as far as the writer deserves, and the director deserve credit for doing as much as they did with that cast. Because
Cool.
it was really a great story.
Great concept.
It is, and I do recommend watching it, even though I only give it a 5 out of 10, just because the story and the things that they have to do.
So the director should remake it with a little bit more money so he can afford people who can act.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would highly recommend.
Awesome.
Just understand that you're getting into some bad acting. Movie number 20 was City of Dead Men from 2014. This was really interesting. It takes place in Colombia, and it's about this young man who's fled the United States, and he's basically living on the streets of Colombia, scamming and working, sort of trying to find places to sleep and all this stuff. And he gets caught up in this cultish group of young people who are living in this old hospital. And it's really interesting sort of mix of supernatural and science and cultism, all sort of in the same movie. Mm-hmm. And there's these masks involved, which is what drew me to it. You give me a mask, and I'm like, hey, I want to see this. I'm a sucker for a good mask. And that's my theme for the week. There's a couple of masks in there. But yeah, I would recommend it. It's got the two lead actors are very recognizable. The names I didn't write down because I don't do that. That's cheating.
Yeah.
But I would recommend this movie to anybody because it is a really entertaining watch. And it doesn't give you the ending you expect. And I love that movie where you don't get the ending you expect.
Cool.
Right?
Nice.
Yeah, and this lead actor sort of arc is really strong, from being sort of this kind of nice homeless guy who's sort of doing things that maybe aren't so good just to get by, to becoming pretty reprehensible for a while, and then sort of that really nice arc of him coming back to himself. Really enjoyed it. Number 21 was Under the Shadow from 2016. This is from a UK Iranian co-production. Oh, I didn't give my rating for City of Dead Men. I gave that one a 6.5 out of 10. Under the Shadow, this was really interesting. It's essentially a single setting film. It takes place in an apartment building and follows this woman and her daughter. It's set in the 1980s, right during the troubled times in Iran, where they're going civil war and all that horrible stuff that's still kind of happening in the Middle East. But they're always under threat of being bombed, and one night they do. And it brings a djinn into the home that attaches itself to her daughter. Now, it's not a possession so much as sort of this attachment that they have to her and how it's affecting their lives. And it's very disturbing. There's almost no special effects. It's all performance driven, which translates really well considering it's not in English, because her facial expressions are so solid and the young girl is really strong. And it's just really, I would highly recommend this one as well.
Cool.
Love that. It's like horror on horror, as if the outside wasn't horrible enough.
Yes.
What's your rating on that one?
That one was a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really strong. Number 22.
This doesn't sound so good.
Oh. It was Dogtooth from 2009.
Oh, this is an anthology one.
No, it is not.
No?
No, it's the one from the guy who did The Lobster. The Greek.
Yes, it's a Greek film.
I remember seeing a bit with some like skeletal winged creature. Was that this movie?
No.
Okay,
No,
that's
this is another character-driven film. I got a lot of character-driven stuff in my third week. My notes for this one are simply fucked up.
Okay.
This is a seriously fucked up story. It's the story of this man and his wife who have isolated their children from the world. And these are adult children. They're in their late teens, early 20s. And they've created this fantasy world for them, and they've created their own language. So any word, any sort of term or language or word that they don't want their children to know the true meaning of, they make up a new definition for it, because it might reveal something about the outside world. And there's a fourth child. There's two daughters and a son, but there's a fourth son who escaped, who fled. He went over the wall out into the outside world. And their parents have led them to believe that there's monsters in the outside world, and the only way to go out is in the car. And it's just so well put together, but it's just terrifying in the worst possible way, because of the way that these children are affected by it, and how they treat each other, and the way they're encouraged to be competitive with each other, and the underlying cruelty of the parents. It's really such a great film that I never, ever, ever want to see again.
Nice.
And it continues my secondary theme of the year. Actually, this is probably my primary theme of the year, is sort of that the abused child in peril, because there's a lot of those. I mean, Under the Shadows, child in peril. Aaron's Blood, child in peril. Eyes Without a Face, kind of child in peril. It's really is a big theme for me for this year. And that one got an 8 out of 10. It was so good. Watching movies in a foreign language, sometimes the performances don't translate, but they certainly do in this one. And yet another foreign film for movie 23. I watched A Tale of Two Sisters from 2003, which is a Korean film.
That's actually on my lists for things to watch down the road.
Well,
Yeah,
this one here has also been remade as The Uninvited in America.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yes, so this is the one I was telling you about right at the beginning of the year. Is like, I'm not sure if I want to do this one or not, because it has an American remake. I really would like to cover this one, mostly because I need to see this movie again, because I really missed a lot, even though I was watching it quite closely. I missed a lot. There's a lot happening in this story. It's really slow paced, like a lot of the Korean horror is, but it's worth it. It is totally worth it, because it's such a great story, and there's a lot of is there or isn't there kind of stuff happening. It's another child in peril movie.
Yeah, following your pattern.
Following my pattern, yes. Again, one of those movies where language barriers are transcended by the performances, and the lead girl is just, her transition from coming out of an insane asylum into her home life again is really spectacular. The mood, it looks wonderful. Everything about it is just a great piece of work, and this is an 8.5 out of 10.
Ooh.
Cool.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about it. I've seen it high up on foreign lists of films to watch.
And rightfully so. And then my last movie, in movie 24, was an Austrian film called Angst from 1983. Oh my goodness. This is based on a true story. It's about a serial killer from Austria. And they fictionalized this story for the most part. Like they sort of took the key elements and turned it into a fictional story. It's another one of those sort of closed-setting films. It starts with him getting out of prison, a brief bit of time with him sort of transitioning to the setting of this horror. But he narrates the whole thing about his desire to kill. The whole movie, he's talking about how much he wants to kill people. And then he invades a home with a mentally handicapped man, an elderly mother, and her young daughter, who's basically the caregiver for both of them. And it's good, but it's also really, really annoying because the killer is so incompetent. I mean, he's always struggling with one of his victims and forgetting about the other ones. And the other one sort of gets away on him, and he has to go chase them down. And he's always falling down and slipping and rolling around on the floor. It makes an interesting juxtaposition because this guy has got such a mad desire to kill, but doesn't really know how to do it. And so it makes for a really interesting story. And it leads into this really interesting end game at the end of the movie where it leads to his ultimate capture. But was it a horror movie? Absolutely, because it is really horrific. It's not particularly gory, but it's his narration that really does make it a horror film. Doesn't stand out really well since it was 1983, but I love to remake this, to be honest with you, because it has so much potential. Mm-hmm. And it got a 7 out of 10 because I think that the performances were good, aside from the rolling on the floor, which I found really frustrating. But I think that was to sort of establish again that his desires did not meet his capabilities. And just the trip into his mind was really, really something else. So yeah, that's my week 2.
Okay, well,
week 3, sorry.
What was your strongest of the week, and what was your weakest of the week?
My weakest, I would have to say, would be Aaron's Blood.
Okay.
It had so much potential, but it just didn't quite meet it. And this is a really tough call for me, because even though I scored A Tale of Two Sisters higher, I'd say Dogtooth was still my best watch. Mm-hmm. Because it was the one where I'm like, after the movie was over, I'm like, I have to watch something really light to cleanse myself from this film.
Nice.
Right. And I texted you after I watched it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
because I felt so unclean.
Yeah.
That I needed something bright to sort of just wash off the darkness from this film.
And so he texted me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a good move.
Yeah, in retrospect, yeah.
Compliment and burn at the same time. What the hell?
Do you have like a go-to ones that you go for something light?
No.
No, just...
Right after Horror Month, I'm like, okay, I need some comfort food, and I just binged a handful of James Bonds. So
for me, I watched Raw Deal, and then I also watched Boondock Saints because I just love that movie.
There you go.
Yeah, but yeah, it took me a while to sort of move away from the horror. I'm like, every time I'm like, oh, that looks no more horror. Oh, no more horror. I just kept wanting to stop on them.
There's just a few things that I still might hit, but I'm going to give some breaks too, for sure. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to give you another clip from Extraordinary, and we'll be right back, starting week 4.
Hello, I'm Vincent Dooley. This week, I'm visiting the O'Callaghan farm in West Cork, investigating a gloating.
Gloating?
Yeah, a goat floating.
Right, obviously.
Martin, do you think you could kind of be like calm and like, do you remember that cool guy in the car with the sunglasses?
The goat is now asleep.
Just to let you know, this is a satanic ritual.
Satanists? Oh my God, don't tell me I should have had her baptized.
This is preparation for a virgin sacrifice.
What? Like, bang a goat?
Yeah, like some demons are into that, you just different strokes. But listen.
On the eve of the blood moon, the virgin's body will float to where the spell was originally cast.
Okay, Trish, it is time for week 4.
Yes.
Our final 7 of 31 Days of Horror. What did you do to round up the week?
Well, and also I did an extra, and then looking at this, I'm like, oh, I forgot another extra that I did as well. I lost count, and I just got a little bit overzealous.
It happens.
It happens. 25 was Velvet Buzzsaw from 2019.
Which we talked about in the previous episode, and again,
Very
really
good.
strong Netflix original. Jake Gyllenhaal was fabulous in this movie. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, everybody was great in it. And then after that was 26 was Nightmare Cinema, which we also talked about last week. Again,
and how did you think of it? Because I don't know if you'd watched it when I talked about it.
I did that morning.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Because I had to ask you the question about the plastic surgery one, because I'm like, oh, the person should look a lot more messed up for this to make sense.
Yeah, so it was really fresh in your head when I talked about it.
Yeah, it was from that morning.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Excellent. Guess what, guys? I picked it up on Blu-ray, but it is now on Shudder since we last talked to you. Yeah. It has been released on Shudder, so go check it out. It is definitely worth it.
That's exactly exactly where I saw it.
There you go.
With Shudder. I was like, ooh, that looks good. And then after that, 27 was Portal, the correct one from 2019.
I like that you picked it up. I was like, damn it, I want to watch my Portal, the one I wanted to watch in the first place.
I'm like, because this one has Heather Langenkamp in it, and I just really enjoy her. And I guess when she was filming this movie, they filmed her scenes at night after she'd been working all day on another movie doing effects stuff.
Oh.
So I thought it was really good. It's about sort of this group of ghost hunters, and they want to capture these. They want to do it right, where they don't want to use cheap scares like other ghost hunting
Like
places.
Ghostbusters?
No, like, ghost hunters.
You're supposed to say never read it.
Oh, never read it. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't read that. I have to do it in the accent. So this guy truly wants to believe, and he wants it to be real. So they find this little incantation on a bit of skin out there, and he goes down and does this stupid incantation because, like your dumbasses do, and then it opens a portal with a demon, and it used to have a deal with the Native Americans that lived there. It was a whole thing. It's very well acted. It was really enjoyable. Like, it's not the strongest written movie, but I have to say it was carried forward by the charisma of every actor in this movie. Like, all of them were very enjoyable to watch.
Good.
So I'd recommend watching that.
All right, so this Portal made up for the last one.
Oh, it so did. It really did. And then after that was Scream Time from 1983.
Scream Time?
Scream Time.
Okay, this sounds like a horror comedy.
Anthology.
Okay.
It's a UK, US sort of thing. There's this nonsensical through story to try and tie it together, where these guys steal some videos from a video store in New York, and then like these horror movies are supposed to be what they're watching.
I remember seeing this when I worked in the video stores. I don't remember any of the story, but I do remember the movie.
Yeah, there's some of it which is quite good. There's one that I think is like a thought way ahead of its time. Like, one of the stories is sort of like a ghost story, but it's like a time slip type of deal and the whole thing. And then there's one with a puppet. Puppets are always creepy. Mm-hmm. And then I can't even remember what the last one was. It was not memorable, I guess, but it was enjoyable.
Okay.
It was fine. And then from that, 29, Buyer Beware. It was a Malaysian one that I watched, and it's actually pretty good. What they do is this company buys properties that terrible stuff has happened in, and they scoop them up for a steal and then sell them at a higher price and make a mint off of it. In order to keep it like kind of okay, they have a protection spell that they put in it while they're just showing the property. Then they take it away, and then all this shit goes wrong.
Why wouldn't you just leave it?
Oh, because if you do that, then the people come back to you because they need to sell it because it's haunted, and you can buy it at a very reduced rate. So the person who bought it suffers a loss. Yes, that's why you do it.
This was on, I have a list that's always open on my iPad of sort of great foreign horror. And that's actually one of the ones that's on that list.
It's quite good. It's kind of corporate horror. Because they really are just, these people are so venal and terrible.
Interesting to use like hauntings as a get rich quick scheme.
Yep, and they make money out of this. Huh. So yeah, but well worth it. For number 30, it was Dislike, a Russian one. You know how sometimes you just I have a particular itch sometimes when I'm watching movies, is I want one that has high production values, but is just straight trash. This is that movie. In very high production values, looks great. Terrible actors, terrible people, terrible story. It was an enjoyable bloody romp that it really just scratched that itch.
Right.
Because it's all these YouTube sensations that go to this house, and the point is they're brought under some sort of guise of trying an energy drink, and then they sort of start to get offed one by one because they're each asked a question like, who wants to kill you? And every time they get it wrong, somebody dies. And they're all greatly unlikable people because they're just these people that have YouTube channels and they're just doing whatever it takes to get the likes.
Get noticed, yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of stupid fun.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's dumb fun. It's great.
Yeah, it's got little bit of when I talked about Ganjiam Haunted Asylum last week, where they're going to this haunted place just so they could get money on the advertising dollars from the live feed.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. There is a live feed, but it also is a great take on the internet and what people people don't think shit through. Like, what they did was these people were paying money online, like, choose who next gets killed in this whole setup. And people were like, well, I gave money. I didn't think people were really going to get killed. I'm like going, what the fuck did you think was going to happen, dumbass?
I told you.
It said that.
So is this like a dark web thing?
Sort of, yeah. Like, it was all these people on the dark web, and they were putting money in, and these people were like, I felt so bad about it.
The mythology of that, they call that red rooms.
Yeah. It's like they didn't... but it really is a great commentary on the fact that people just don't fucking pay attention. They're like, oh, I thought it was just like this. No, there's so much stupid out there.
Oof. Well, sounds like it's a fun but kind of terrifying at the same time.
It is. It's really terrifying. And then my number 31 was Midsummer.
Ending on a high note.
Ending on a very high note, but I still don't know what the hell I saw.
Those are my favorite kind of horrors where, like, I have to watch that again just to figure it out.
I rewatched portions of it because I couldn't figure it out.
I did really want to watch it, but it was 2.5 hours, and I was just getting exhausted by the end, and I didn't want to do it anymore. But Jeff and Mega was really pushing for one of us to do it, so
it was good.
I'm glad we made him happy.
William Jackson Harper's in it. I want him in all the things. And it's also, I read some a background on it with the filmmakers because I was like trying to figure out what was happening. Mm-hmm. And there was actually an interview. And there's a whole thing with like a fertility ritual. The actor who played it, he's like, no, I really pushed for full male frontal nudity because it's about having this guy be vulnerable and having me be vulnerable. It's sort of like that flip on the eroticizing of pain and suffering that's usually given to women.
Out of nudity, out of all my horror movies, there was more male nudity in my movies this year than female nudity.
Exactly. And it's sort of, it really works for the scene. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's kind of...
This is Ari Aster, right?
It really, it's Ari Aster, and it's...
This director of Hereditary, so he's 2 for 2 now.
He really is. It's so great. Like, it's Wicker Man-ish, but Swedish. And yeah, and the lead actress is amazing. The lead actor is really good. Everybody in it is very... It's... Yeah, again, you have to watch it. I can't even really get into it because it's so... But there's an ending bit, too, where I don't know. And they say that people are really divided on the ending, how it goes. Because people either like the ending and wanted it to go that way, or other people are like, no, that's kind of wrong. And I'm sort of in this weird mid-space where I'm like, but they're both pawns. And it's like, I really was disappointed in her for playing into their trap. But he wasn't much of a prize either. So it was just sort of, I would be pissy if I were her. I'd be like, I'm not your fucking pawn. I'm going to choose the sacrifice I want to choose. But it's a beautiful film. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I've heard great things about it. But yeah, that one's a time commitment. I think I'll just watch it off season. Because to be honest, in Hereditary, I've been kind of like wanting to see, but not wanting to see because I've seen some portions of it already that are pretty horrific. And I have a feeling I'm going to be very upset after that one.
And that's sort of why I went with this one as opposed to Hereditary. There is some gore in it, but it's weird. It's like epically beautiful. And I feel bad thinking like, oh, that's exquisite looking, but horrifying. Like, I don't know quite how to describe it other than that. And then, like I say, I lost count.
You got a couple of bonuses, yeah?
A couple of bonuses. Sadako versus Kayako.
Okay, so that is the Ring versus the Grudge.
Yeah. I think it's the Freddy versus Jason I always wanted.
Okay, I've been meaning to watch that. I actually totally forgot about it. I would have probably watched it this year too if I'd remembered about it.
Yeah, it was on Shudder. That's how I watched it.
Okay,
so I was
but I mean, I've only really, out of the Japanese Ring movies and Grudge movies, I've really only seen the first of both.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of watches to go because I think there's like 7 Rings out in Japan.
There's a ton out,
and I'm not sure 3 or 4 Grudges at least. I mean, God, I think we got our 3rd remake this year of The Grudge in America. So
and it really helped. Like, my takeaways from this are 2 things. I'm like, oh, these two female ghosts. I'm like going, oh, look, women working together. And then also it's like, oh no, released on the internet. Now just overextending ourselves with work. Because I mean, if it's on the internet, the Ring chick, she's going to be busy.
Yeah.
Like, super busy.
God damn it. Why did I think this was a good idea?
Right? She's like, when it was just a videotape, it was fucking easy. But
now I just want to rest.
Now it's just on YouTube and there's like so many views. Shit.
Spreading yourself a little thin.
I think she is. It's going to suck. And there's one more beyond that. It was called Terrified. It was a Colombian film. A Haunted Cul-de-sac. Very good, very interesting. Again, another one I'm still not quite sure what I watched.
Yeah, but that's another one that's on my that list of...
I remember seeing it on Netflix last year, and like, nope, I want to watch Terrifier, not that one.
Yeah,
but maybe I should have.
And it was good. And it's like you have a hero. He's got a hearing aid and a heart condition, which I kind of enjoyed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's my overextended.
Okay, well, what was your worst of the week? What was your best of the week?
Worst, Scream Time's probably worst. Because I mean, Dislike was real trash, but it was enjoyable trash. Let's see. Oh. Midsummer, I want to put it higher, but I don't understand it. So I won't. Velvet Buzzsaw sort of ekes it out, but only because I knew what was happening.
Okay. That is fair. Now, recycle the whole month for me, because we're going to come back at the end, and we're going to do the best of the month.
Okay.
And the worst of the month. All right, Sam, what does your final week look like?
My final week, okay. It started off really strong. It started off with a movie called Ride, R-Y-D-E, from 2017. It's a really great film that kind of takes advantage of the fears of ride sharing. So Ride is like an Uber service.
Yeah.
And it follows this guy who, he has this really weird moral stance. And it starts off with him picking up this girl in a bar. They take a ride to her home, where he proceeds to murder her because she's too easy. Then he gets back in the car with his Uber driver, or his ride driver, goes home, gets a murder kit, and proceeds on a night with his ride driver at the start, going on a murder spree. But he ends up, without spoiler alert, he ends up murdering his ride driver and becomes the ride driver. But it's really interesting because he has sort of this moral compass, because he doesn't just kill indiscriminately. Like, they have to do something that he feels is morally wrong in order to kill them.
What did his ride driver do?
He's Dexter if he had a shitty job.
Yeah.
Well, it's that Tom Cruise, Jamie Foxx one, essentially, except
Collateral,
it's a cab in that one, and it's Lyft in this one.
Yeah, it's a little bit different because Tom Cruise plays a contract killer. But yeah,
he has a moral compass too. He's only going to do it if he gets paid.
Yeah, right. Different motivations, obviously. But yeah, it's a really interesting take on the potential perils of being a ride sharing. Yeah, and I think the only nonsensical murder was the murder of his ride driver, because he was a nice kid. He was necessary in order for him to proceed with the rest of his plan. But yeah, really quite interesting. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
So your killer's a hypocrite.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 26 was Eyes of My Mother, a Netflix. I found this on Netflix. I'm not sure if it was a Netflix original or not, but it's from 2016. This was a black and white film.
I've seen this one. It's on a list of mine, I think.
It is really good. It's a really interesting story on isolation and nurture versus nature in some ways, because this young girl, her mother sort of inured her to death and sort of taught her about anatomy and how to treat people in a medical emergency before her untimely death. And then it jumps, actually before her murder, actually. And then it jumps forward like 15 years or more, and they still have her murderer chained up in their barn. He's been trapped there, chained into their barn. He's been muted. He can't speak anymore. And if I'm correctly, blinded as well. So she's got this sort of... And he's the only person she has a relationship with. And he can't talk back to her. She just talks to him. There's a point that ends up in his death, and the steps she takes to find a new companion. It's really stunning. It looks so good shot in the black and white. And it's so disturbing because the story is so simple. And it's one of those small cast, small setting films, and it just works so wonderfully. And the ending is just so well handled. I mean, it's kind of the ending you expect, but it's just really, really well handled. I gave that one a 7.5 out of 10 as well.
That one sounds awesome. I have to watch that. I think of my off time.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching. And it's not very long. I think it was like an hour and 20 minutes. It wasn't a very long film. It was really tight.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And I like that where they just bang, bang, bang the story. I mean, sometimes a shorter movie works better.
I think with theatrical, there's an expectation you have to hit 90 minutes. But if you're streaming, like, don't pad out the story to hit that magical 90 minutes. Just tell it the story for as long as it needs.
Yeah, and it worked really well in this case.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where my week started to sort of take a bit of a downturn.
Uh-oh.
So the production company that made this film has been chatting us up on Twitter. So I said, okay, I'll watch it.
Okay.
One of the two films that they have sort of that they're pushing right now. I watched Horror Hotel, which is available on Prime and Tubi. And I'll be honest with you, I had low expectations, so I probably enjoyed it more than I might have if I had just sort of gone into it blind. Is another anthology, which we all know how much I love those. But
maybe I should have done this one. I love anthologies.
I know. It's really low budget. I mean, this is essentially what happens. They're a web series, and they decided to do a feature-length anthology compilation. So it's got some of the stuff they've already done and then some new stuff in it. I love the concept. Their connective tissue is this hotel. It's like a roadside motel, and all the stories take place in the motel. The stories themselves, really interesting. I think there's a sort of the post-apocalyptic, there's no men left in the world story. There's a clone episode.
Ooh.
Right? And they're fun. And what I love about this movie is they know they're low budget, which is why I enjoyed it as much as I did as well. They know that they're not a high budget production company. They have sort of an ensemble cast that they go to, and you see the same actors in multiple segments, which is fine. It works really well.
Yeah.
I kind of like the fact that it's an ensemble cast. Honestly, I think that it was a lot of fun. If it weren't for the really low budget, I think this could be something special.
Mm-hmm. Well, the way you led into this, it sounded like it was going to be complete garbage.
Yes. Yeah, and you know what? I give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay, so it's decent for what it's given.
So you're
thinking like it's a downturn because you've just had a high week.
Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Yeah, because coming out of Eyes of Your Mother into this, it was a bit of a draw, right, in terms of quality and storytelling. Again, because I'm not a big fan of the anthology. But I think it's very entertaining, and I'm going to watch the second one, which is Return to Horror Hotel.
Ooh.
Okay, cool.
Return to Horror Hotel. I have trouble with the word horror, apparently.
Well, you have to be very careful with that one.
Yes.
Horror.
Yes. I give that a 6 out of 10. Number 28. Oh, my God. Okay, this is where it really goes bad.
Well, you said that last time.
Yes. Well,
but then it was actually pretty good.
It starts to take a downturn, and it did.
Okay.
It did take a bit of a downturn. This is where it gets where it really goes down.
Oh,
this
so
is
you
as low
had
as I
hit
get.
Bottom.
Yeah. This is where as low as it gets. And it's still not terrible. Mm-hmm. I watched a movie from 2017 called Dead Ant.
Oh, this is the one you replaced Tour Strap with.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because this was a bonus movie. I'm like,
sorry.
Hey, yeah. I had to watch it. It has Sean Astin. It has Jake Busey and Tom Arnold. He's hit or miss, I know,
Yeah.
but when he's going campy, he's a lot of fun. And this movie is camp. It is camp all the way through, and it's another movie that does not take itself seriously. It is stupid, but it's also fun because you know that these people are not taking this at all seriously. The filmmakers aren't, the actors aren't. They're just out there to have some good fun.
What is it?
So Sean Astin and Jake Busey are in an 80s rock band that's still trying to make it. Like they had one hit in the 80s and kind of like Rat.
Hard Rock Zombie?
Yeah, no, it's better than that. It is better than that. There's no question it's better than that. But yeah,
well, this is funny because they're all in their mid-40s. So.
Yes, so it's perfect. They're perfectly cast in terms of age goes.
Yeah,
but they're on their way to Coachella.
Okay,
so they think.
Oh my!
But Tom Arnold plays their manager, and he's booked them into Other Ella or something like that. It's like sort of knockoff Coachella,
Clonachella,
something like that. Yeah, I can't remember the exact name.
Coachella, business class Ella.
Yeah, it's funny. Precept is like, yeah, well, that's not where you're going. You're going to this
assistant Coachella.
Yeah, assistant Coachella. I like that. That's better. That's better than the title they had. But on their way, they stop at this reservation to pick up the cactus, peyote. Peyote. Yes, and the native man who gives it to him says, "Don't take too much, and whatever you do while you're out there, don't hurt anything. Don't damage the trees. Don't kill any animals. Anything." So
all of it they do?
No, it's one small thing, but it's really important. Is Sean Astin, first off, pigs out on the peyote before everybody else. So he's tripping out in the bushes. He goes off to have a pee, and he pisses on an ant.
Yeah, drowns.
Oh, piss ant.
Yes. And that leads into sort of the ants, the retribution from these ants. And every time they kill an ant, the ants get bigger. They turn into giant ants, and that's why it's called Dead Ant, because every time you kill an ant, you get larger and bigger ants. And it's also Dead Ant, like the musical bump.
Oh my God. I think it sounds better than it watches.
It sounds terrible, but I'm curious.
And that was my thinking too. I mean, you're getting some weak performances from these actors because, again, they're not taking it seriously. This is like, well, I'll take the paycheck.
I'll do this weekend.
Yeah, and Sean Astin looks ridiculous in his wig.
Well, I kind of want to see him as an aging rock star.
And he's in it briefly. Obviously, he's like, well, yeah, I'll come out for 2 days, shoot this, and then I'm done, right?
Yeah, kill me off.
Yeah, because so he's not in it for very long. But yeah, it's stupid. It's fun. It's kind of like your dislike. It's like I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was going to be dumb, and I had fun watching it. It's still a shitty movie, but you can still have fun watching shitty movies. It only got a 5 out of 10, and this was the worst movie of my week. I'll say it right now. This was by far the worst movie of my week. But it's not a bad worst movie. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but if you're in for stupid fun, go ahead. Number 29. This one here is Pay the Ghost from 2015. I don't know if either of you have seen this, but you should. This was Nick Cage at his best. This is the Nick Cage that was winning Oscars in terms of performance. It was subdued. There's none of that overacting. And the directors just really guided him really nicely through this film. And I think Nick has found his niche in the last few years because Pay the Ghost is a great horror film. Mom and Dad was great.
Yes.
And Mandy apparently is phenomenal. So maybe this is where he needs to be.
There's a new one that just came out as well, or I might not even be out yet, that I was trying to find, and I just couldn't find it anywhere, streaming, pay-per-view, whatever. But it sounds like, with Mandy, he's kind of found his niche, and oh man, I'm trying to remember.
He teamed up with the same director of Mandy, right?
I don't think it is, but I'd have to check into it. But
okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because they make a good pair.
Nice.
But yeah, I genuinely think that this sort of horror genre really works for him because he can take advantage of all the things he's good at. He is really good at the subdued performance when he's given the opportunity, but then when he goes over the top, he's so much fun.
Yeah,
right?
Well, and it's something like horror especially, you can really embrace the weirder aspects and the more extravagant aspects of his acting style.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. This one didn't really have to go into the extravagant at all. Like I said, there was none of the crazy screaming, yelling that we see so often in his films. It's a great story. It's about a guy whose son goes missing, and he spends the next year looking for his child. It's a really interesting take on the vengeful spirit story. I don't want to give away too much because I think that this is one of those movies that people should watch. But I would certainly recommend it because he's so good in it. Yeah,
I love this direction in his career now and it seems to me he's having a lot of fun doing these horror movies, so
yes.
I'm kind of hoping he sticks with it for a little while. But he does do these things in cycles of the type of movie he likes to work on. So
it's true. It's very true. He does sort of drive angry.
Yeah, he likes to do he goes through like action phase, and then I think this is his horror phase.
Yeah, well, I hope he stays here for a while. If he keeps making movies like this, and Mom and Dad and Mandy, please stay here, Nick.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a good way to revive your career.
Yeah.
Especially if you're at the early part of what is this renaissance in horror that's going on right now, then it's a great time to count yourself among that, and it's a good way to resurrect your career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, I don't want to say too much about this movie because it was so good.
Okay, we'll check it out.
Awesome.
Number 30.
It's funny that we both were like thinking, I'm like, I needed a Nicolas Cage at the end of the week, and the one I wanted to watch I could not find. So I think it was just too early still.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mandy was going to be my Watch 31. It ended up not being it because I did do the Pay the Ghost instead.
Right.
And I'm glad I did. Number 30 was a movie called The Dark. It's an Austrian film that was shot in Canada. That's my only Canadian connection this year, unfortunately.
Okay, that's not related to the series that's on Netflix right now?
No.
Okay.
No. It's from 2018. This was so good. It's one of those Who's the Monster stories. I mean, you have a monster.
Oh, one of those. Yeah. That old hat.
Exactly. Well, it was like the mountain one we did. Dark Side of the Mountain.
The Canadian one?
The Canadian one, yeah. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, so, was that Dark Mountainside? Or
I think so.
I don't know. It's on your list, and I wasn't on mine.
I know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those movies.
Black Mountainside.
Black Mountainside.
Oh, that was one of the ones I kind of skipped over because I'm like, that looks like something somebody might do.
I was a little more cosmic horror, and I was going to, but I didn't.
Yeah. As was I. But this one, it's you have a monster. You have a young girl who is living in the woods, who is horribly disfigured, and she eats people. But as they tell the story, you find out why she is the way she is, hence who's the monster, right?
Oh, I got one of those in my third week that's kind of like very twisty.
Yeah.
Nice.
Right. And then you have the addition of a character. Then this is sort of the where the story gets interesting is you have her in the woods, and you have this monster who comes to her, who's kidnapped a young boy and blinded him. Again, who's the monster?
Wow.
Right. But then there's another who's the monster. And then another one.
This sounds like a bit of an anthology that's been woven into one complete narrative.
One cohesive narrative. It is so well done. I don't want to give away too much, but boy, this was something that I would recommend to anybody. And it's in English. So it's shot in Canada and it was shot in English. This is a 9 out of 10. For me.
Ooh,
nice.
Okay, gonna watch it then.
Yeah, I didn't have too many of those this month, but
this might be my only 9, I think.
Okay. Oh, I've got more than that.
Yeah. Actually, I think I had one in the previous 2 weeks, but yeah, there weren't very many for me at all. And this one, I mean, I don't just watch it. There's a really interesting sub story because she's a monster, and you sort of expect her to remain a monster, but again, you've got monster over monster over monster over monster kind of thing happening here. As she becomes sort of attached to this boy, her humanity starts to return, which is really interesting. And then, so yeah, that was 9 out of 10. And staying with my theme of child abuse.
Yeah, my gosh. That is a strong theme for you this month.
It really was.
Strong but accidental, right?
It was completely accidental. And then my last movie was Assimilate from 2019. This was not going to be my 31st movie, but Val started watching it, and I'm like, ooh, this looks really interesting. And then she left, and I kept watching it.
She abandoned her movie.
Oh man!
Well, she had stuff to do, and I think she took it up. She would finish watching it on her iPad upstairs, and I finished watching it downstairs. We both finished watching it. But this was a fantastic twist on the body snatchers type horror, right? Or the alien invasion. Really interesting how they did that. They did an interesting. They brought in social media and YouTube. It's these two young men who are really bored with their podunk town, right? And they actually call it that at the beginning of the movie. And they're sort of using YouTube to sort of just show what life is like in a small town as sort of a method to sort of get out of town. They're kind of hoping to get some views and maybe make some money so they can go off to college kind of thing. They're using it as a means to an end. As this invasion starts to happen, it's like exceptionally well done. And I
keep thinking Body Snatchers meets Red Dawn.
To a certain extent, yeah. It's really interesting. I don't want, again, this is one of those movies where if you say too much, you ruin it. It's more sci-fi than horror, but it has enough horror elements, and it does get a horror tag on IMDb, which is why I went, okay, yeah, no, this will do. Yeah. And I'm glad I did. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. So it was a pretty strong end to my month. I did have some bonus movies, as did Trish, but we already sort of touched base on Summertime and Heaven and Hell, and then Dead Ant was one originally. Now it became a filler for Tourist Trap, which became my bonus movie. There were a few bonus movies in there as well, not counting the movies that we did for the show, because there were a bunch in there that I hadn't watched either, but I didn't want to count those except for Chopping Mall because I was so damn excited about it.
But sometimes I like to drop one in here so we can refer back to the episode.
Yeah, when we realized we were 5 weeks in October, and it's like, what do we do? What do we do next? And I'm like, oh, Sam's been itching for Chopping Mall, so let's do that.
Yes, and we did, and it was fun. My strongest movie, by far, The Dark. It was just
cool.
Yeah, I watch it
for the week or for the month.
For the week.
For the week. Yeah, we'll do that later.
Yeah, and then for the weakest one, obviously Dead Ant. Yeah, and it was just knowing full well what it was when I watched it. I think if you didn't know what you were watching, you'd probably score it lower.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay, before we get into my final week of 31 Days of Horror, we got another trailer for you. And Trish and I both did this last week. Well, I did this for my very first one for this episode. And Trish did it for her last one last week. And this is the trailer for The Love Witch from 2016.
I'm Samantha Robinson, the star of the new 35mm motion picture called The Love Witch. In the movie, I moved from San Francisco to Eureka to start a new life where no one knows me. And I meet a lovely woman named Trish.
Hey, hi, I'm Trish. Well, what do men want?
Just a pretty woman to love and to take care of them. I set up shop as a witch, and I start to use my love spells on unsuspecting men. You want some?
What is it?
Something I made. Sometimes the spells work too well, and the men, well... Wayne. They just don't make it. Men are just not as strong as we are. Oh well, life goes on. But I keep trying, hoping that something will eventually work out. Love me. And then one day I meet Mr. Right. All is going well. until suddenly everyone starts to get very angry with me. Why is everyone trying to punish me?
What you call love is a borderline personality disorder.
Why does everything happen to me? How will it all end? Well, you'll have to see the movie to find out. Come and see The Love Witch, coming soon to a theater near you.
All right, it's time for my final week for 31 Days of Horror. So, number 25 is Girl on the Third Floor. This just was released right around this time. I caught it on demand on my PlayStation 4, so it was fairly cheap to rent. This is written and directed by Travis Stevens, based on a story by Paul Johnstone and Ben Parker. And it stars Phillip Brooks, otherwise known as CM Punk, Chick Magnet Phil. Also starring Therese Kelly Dunn and Sarah Brooks and Elisa Dowling. Basically, CM Punk's doing a reno on an old mansion, an old house that he's bought to move his pregnant wife into while he does the renos. She's away for most of the film, and they talk via Skype or whatever on their iPads when he's taking breaks. And, of course, the place is haunted.
as it would be.
As you do. And things get weirder as it goes along. And there's this girl who shows up out of the blue on the property and seduces him. We later learn that CM Punk, his character, is trying to make up for a lifetime of bad choices that he is still making. Yeah. And this house used to be a house of ill repute.
Ooh.
Yes. So the key to surviving the house is to not give in to its magical wiles.
So just make good choices.
Which CM Punk does not.
Of course.
But his wife turns up at the end, and it's one of those things that kind of turns on the end. It's a slow build, and it gets really exciting when his wife shows up and experiences the house like full bore on this night. It's pretty good, but it gets off to a slow start. Some of the talent in the movie is not so great, and surprisingly, it's not the wrestler. He's actually pretty decent for his first lead. He's also in Rabid, the remake that also came out this year, in a smaller part, and this is his first lead. For somebody who's not been an actor, he's not bad. I mean, he's not great, but I think...
He's probably just watchable.
Yeah, well, given where John Cena's in some big budget movies now, and he's still kind of shit. I mean, I liked Bumblebee, but he was kind of shit.
See.
And he's
I love Trainwreck. He was great.
And he's going to be in the next Fast and the Furious, and I'm a little worried because he's kind of shit.
John Cena just plays John Cena.
And CM Punk, out of his first lead outing, I think's already better than John Cena is. So maybe there's a future here for CM Punk. He's certainly better at it than MMA.
Yeah, it's funny how so many of these wrestlers are trying to follow that career trajectory of The Rock.
Well, and I mean, if they were good at a good promo, it doesn't really come down to the wrestling, although it helps because they can do the stunts a little bit more and not rely on a double. But if they were good at a promo, chances are they'll be fairly good at acting. That's why The Rock was so good at the transition. And to be honest, I think if Stone Cold kept doing it, Steve Austin kept doing it, he'd probably be in bigger and better films, but he was never, I think, comfortable as an actor.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because I think he was actually pretty decent.
I have to agree with you on that one. He was one of the high points of Expendables for me, actually.
Mm-hmm.
He was also really good in Dilbert.
Okay.
He was a judge, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I did not know that.
Yes.
So, yeah, Girl on the Third Floor, I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10. It was pretty good for the most part, but like I said, it's a slow burn, a slow build, and some of it's a bit tropey, but...
Good.
And I'm probably being a little more forgiving just because CM Punk was actually pretty good in this movie, despite being an unlikable person. But you like him off the bat, and then when you start learning shit about him, then you're like, you deserve to die. Number 26 was Dead Birds, a horror western by director Alex Turner and written by Simon Barrett, who wrote You're Next and the more recent Blair Witch movie.
I kept lingering on that one.
As did I, actually.
And it, great cast. It stars Henry Thomas, Patrick Fugit, Nikki Icox, Michael Shannon, Mark Boone Jr., and Isaiah Washington. Like, this is a fucking murder's row in this movie. It's about a group of outlaws that rob a bank of Confederate gold and then hide out in an abandoned plantation. And of course, shit happens.
Oh, yeah.
It gets kind of creepy, and they're getting picked off one by one. And it's got a really weird ending. That's why I picked it, because I'm like, ooh, I like weird.
Nice.
But it's a bit of a slog, I gotta say. I mean, the ending was like, what? Oh, that was odd, and I don't want to give it away, because there's these creatures at the beginning, and then they tie back at the end. But honestly, it's a bit of a slog, and I wanted to like it a lot more based on that cast. I'm like, ooh, I can't go wrong on this, but it wasn't great. I mean, 2004, the careers are still being built at this point for especially Isaiah Washington and Michael Shannon, so they've come a long way since then, and it's unfortunate, but yeah, not great. 6 out of 10. I mean, I was really like, all right, Western, something with a different flavor, and it didn't turn out to be that great.
Do you think if they tightened it up time-wise, it probably would have been better?
No.
Okay,
I think
that is my question.
I think the characterizations need to be better, and the characters disappeared for long periods of time. Yeah. And sometimes the cases you don't know what happened to them until you see them later. So you kind of see the result of what happened, and some characters you do get to see what happened, but yeah, I didn't dig it. I didn't dig it at all. There was, weird rituals and stuff. It's a weird little movie, to be honest. I mean, it might be worth watching just to try to decipher some of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but not great. But number 27 this is the Netflix original Eli, which just released recently, but was actually shot in 2018. Directed by Ciaran Foy, written by David Chirchirillo, Ian Goldberg, and Richard Niang, starring Charlie Shotwell, Kelly Riley, Max Martini, and Lily Taylor. This was really good. This is about a boy with an autoimmune disorder who's been taken to this special facility. It's another mansion that's been retrofitted to help kids with autoimmune disease. So it's been sealed from the world because this kid is transferred from his sealed room via, Devo suit that won't let any germs in and stuff. The environment hurts him. And
so it's like the orphanage, but rather it's autoimmune rather than disability.
So we get into this ghost story where the ghosts, there is a big twist in this. So I'm going to try not to reveal that, but the ghosts are trying to help him out, I guess.
Oh.
And, of course, the doctors, there is a dark secret with them as well. And I don't want to say more because there's this thing that gets twisted on its head. And I'm like, oh, wait, this was never a ghost story.
Well, and sort of the orphanage was sort of never a ghost story as well, but then it sort of was.
I mean, it is, but it isn't. And I really enjoyed the twist on this. It's a kind of classic M. Night Shyamalan. It might come off a bit cheesy for some people, but I really dug it.
And we were speaking of Nicolas Cage going into horror, and it's really working for him. Lily Taylor is another person who's going into more horror, and I find her really good in those.
She's good in everything, though.
Yeah,
well, she is, but I'm really enjoying her.
Even though when she's in a shitty one like The Haunting remake.
Yes. Oh, yeah, she lifts it up if she's in shit.
Yeah, but she's still good regardless.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say any more because I don't want to reveal the twist. I do want people to watch this, and it's very accessible on Netflix right now. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10.
Wow.
Nice.
And my next one was another Netflix original, shot in 2018 but released in 2019 back in May. It's called The Perfection, written and directed by Richard Shepard and also written by Eric C. Cormello and Nicole Snyder. Whew, this one, twisty. It's about a troubled musical prodigy who seeks out the new star pupil from this elite musical school that she came from. And this star pupil has gone on to the career she could have had, but she had to kind of leave the world of music. She was a cellist, because her mom got suddenly sick. They become great friends, and they go on this little trip together, and yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which the new star pupil winds up losing her arm on. And we think it's because the person was jealous of her success. And that's what
feel kind of Black Swanish.
Single white female-ish.
And then there's a rewind, and you really start buying that's what it is, but it's not. It was a rescue mission. Like, she manipulates this girl into cutting off her
126 hours?
To save her from this place. And probably something she's already experienced. And I don't know how much more I want to say because it twists again. This thing has like two kind of rewind moments and shows you the things that you didn't quite see, and it rewrites itself. It is amazing.
It sounds
this
very
movie
fun.
is amazing. So I'm not going to give you the final act on this, but it's almost three different things. Like the first part's body horror. Second part is revenge of the girl, I guess, that had the body part taken from her. And then the third part is chicks get their revenge.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's... I don't want to say more than that because it gives too much away.
Cool.
Wow. This movie was a wow. 9 out of 10.
Awesome.
Nice.
9 out of 10.
Gotta watch that.
So, like, I wasn't sure about this one going in. I'm like, boy, this looks like it's beautifully shot, well acted, and it was. But when I watched the trailer, I'm like, I'm intrigued, but I'm not sure I'm going to like this. And the deeper I got, I just got deeper and deeper sucked into the whole of the movie. And it was stunning. Stunning movie.
Awesome.
And then number 29, we just talked about that just at the beginning of the episode. Extraordinary, written and directed by Mike Ahern and Wolfman, starring Maeve Higgins. Fantastic. I can't recommend this movie enough. This was a shit ton of fun. This Irish movie, and we've played clips from it in the episode, and we'll have one more for you in the post.
Watch it. Just watch it.
Yeah, watch it. It is a boatload of fun. I really enjoyed it. 8 out of 10. And then followed by another horror comedy called Slaughterhouse Rulez from 2018, written and directed by Crispin Mills. And the screenplay was by Henry Fitzherbert, starring Finn Cole, Asa Butterfield, Hermione Corfield, and Simon Pegg, Michael Sheen, Nick Frost, and Margot Robbie.
Good Lord.
Right?
Huh.
Basically, these creatures attack this posh boarding school. A lot of them go away during the mass attack. These creatures come to the surface because of a nearby fracking facility.
Oh, nice.
So it's got its environmental overtones.
Tremors.
Yeah. I'd want to rate this higher than it does, but it takes a long time to get going, and the jokes don't land at the beginning, and there's some characters you really don't like. Granted, they do torture those characters, so you are satisfied. And some characters, like Nick Frost, isn't in very much, but he's really good when he's there. It's decent. It's not extraordinary good.
Is it trashy fun?
It's trashy fun, yeah. I'm going to give it 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
The director has worked with Simon Pegg before, but it was on another kind of meh. So, I don't know. This guy I don't think he's great at comedy. If you can't make it land with this cast...
Oh, yeah, like let them do their thing. They'll do it.
In a lot of cases, I think it's a case of overwriting on this thing. They're trying to be more clever than they actually are.
Yes, and that can be annoying. You're like, oh no.
But once everything's kind of let loose in the third act, it's a lot of fun. But the first two thirds, first two thirds are a bit of a slog, but not bad. It's still worth a watch. 6.5 out of 10.
Maybe just fast forward it a bit.
Yeah, and 31, I like to end on of course it's going to be good, much like you did.
Yes.
I did Us from 2019 by writer-director Jordan Peele, starring Lupita Nyong'o again.
Awesome.
Got her twice this month, and Winston Duke and Elizabeth Moss. A terrific movie. Basically, if you don't know what this movie's about, it's a family's beach vacation turns to chaos when the doppelgangers appear. And it's really about facing your dark side of yourself. That's kind of the underlining tones of this movie. I think this one's a lot darker and scarier than Get Out was.
Really?
Get Out has a lot of humor to it. This one, not so much. I mean, there's moments of humor for sure. Jordan Peele just can't help himself, and it helps to kind of bring you down a little bit and give you a moment of pause. But it is a tense movie, and it's got its own little twist at the end as well. And I don't want to give it away. It's a bit tropey. I don't think it's as good as Get Out, but it's really good. It's still a really strong movie.
And that seems to be the common consensus. Is it's still strong, but it doesn't quite compare to Get Out.
Yeah, I mean it's right up there, but not quite there. Not quite there. But Jordan Peele's really found a niche that he's comfortable with, and he's. I was watching some of the special features, and it does sound like he's going to stick with horror for a little while.
Awesome.
He's just very comfortable in this genre, and so far he's 2 for 2. And I'm going to give that an 8.5 out of 10, which means Get Out's got to be a little bit higher.
I have one question about it, and I don't think by asking this I'll be giving too much of the movie away or revealing too much, but I just had a question because I haven't seen it yet. I say yet. For the doppelgangers, is it just this family's doppelgangers, or are all doppelganger coming out?
It looks like at least everybody in this town is, a lot of them, because there's a point where they're all linking arms and it's going like across the country. Like there's a lot of them that come out. They come out of this tunnel. There's a secret facility where they've been cloned, but there's no soul, and they're kind of these fucked up shadows of the people that exist. Now, there's a bit of a question because as a child, Lupita's character had wanders away from the family and meets her doppelganger as a youth, and now that she's married with her own kids, the father of the kids, her husband, wants to go on vacation in this same spot. And she's very resistant to going, and she's got a lot of missing memories from that time as well. So I'm not going to say any more because that's part of the secrets of the film if you haven't already seen it. It's still a pretty recent movie, so I don't want to give too much away.
Absolutely.
But excellent movie.
Awesome.
All right. That's our 31 Days of Horror. We will get to our final consensus of the month, our final roundup here on the month. But, if you like what we do, if you like these 31 Days of Horror every year, let us know on our social media, at Invasion of the Remake on Twitter, Invasion of the Remake on Facebook and Instagram, and invasionoftheremake@gmail.com. Send us your suggestions, your corrections, your comments, and please recommend the show to your friends and family. Yes. Our link tree is on our social media. You can find us in a ton of different places. I'm not going to go through it because it's a long episode already, but we're easy to find. We're even on
freaking YouTube.
So just Google us and you'll find us somewhere, or just enter in Invasion of the Remake on your favorite podcatcher. You'll probably find us.
Yeah, you're hiding from us if you can't find us.
That's right, and we're always actively adding more.
And we are
sources.
one invasion you do not want to hide from.
Yes.
That's right. You can't hide from this invasion. Okay, so now when it comes down to the best and worst of the month. Trish, what was your favorite of the month?
Favorite of the month? Just eking out Midsummer was extraordinary.
Okay.
It lightened my mood in such a way. Like I was hitting a low point in the month, and I was very sad.
That was a last minute find. It wasn't on any of my lists.
Me too.
And it was just, I stumbled across it. Fabulous movie. I really fell in love with it.
Yes. There's so many funny bits. Like I literally couldn't stop laughing for most of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's rare because you see a lot of comedy. You're like, I saw that joke coming. A lot of the times I didn't. It was really good.
No, the writing's really clever on that. What was the one you least liked of the month?
It's going to be the batch of Paranormal Activity movies.
Almost half your month.
Yeah, but remember I put them together as a batch when I said it was the worst of the week.
Almost the entirety of her week 2 last week.
Yeah, that was a sad, dark chapter in my life, and I don't know if I want to go back to it.
Well, if everybody missed that is in part 1 of 31 Days of Horror, so go check that out. But oh boy, an entire batch of movies made it into our worst list. That's impressive.
That is really impressive.
Yeah, well, they're all connected, so I think it counts.
I'll give you that one. Thank you. That's unfortunate.
It is truly unfortunate.
I mean, one movie you can kind of forgive, but that's like 10 or more hours of your life.
Yeah, if I had known, I would have said, Trish, don't. Just don't.
I wish, you know what, sometimes, and this is for everybody out there, if in your life...
I don't feel sorry for her. She continued to do it.
I did continue to do it. But I think this goes to like a deeper theory. If you feel you're struggling through life, ask for help. Ask your friends. Say, am I making a bad decision?
Yes. Yes, you were.
Use your safe word.
Sometimes you just need to ask friends for help.
Okay, Sam, what was your favorite of the month?
This was a tough one because it's a toss-up between Most Beautiful Island and The Dark. They were both so good for different reasons, but I think The Dark just ekes out Most Beautiful Island for me.
Okay, and the worst of the month.
Oh,
Okay. I thought you had some 4s. You gave that a 5.
That was the first week you had a really bad one.
I did have, I brought up my list because I didn't.
But sometimes with the post, you give him time to think about it, and even though sometimes you rate something higher, it doesn't mean it's better.
No, exactly. That just give me a moment. I'm gonna take a look at I think I gave Mary Lots of Soul a 4. And I gave Strange Events a 4, I think. One of those two got a 4. But they weren't as bad as Dead Ant.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But Dead Ant got a higher rating because of casting and because I knew what I was getting into.
Right.
Right. It had no pretenses.
Yes.
That didn't make it good. But there were no pretenses with that one. Whereas the other two, I felt kind of like I'd been misled by what was presented to me.
Gee, Sam, I wasn't trying to ask you about War and Peace. The complexities of what did you hate?
It's true. I mean, sometimes I always get upset when I'm watching a movie and I'm like, this isn't what the trailer promised me. I get angry.
Oh, well, I agree.
So, yes. So, The Dark and Dead Ant.
But it's weird. I still want to see Dead Ant.
I mean, I had a few 9.0s out of 10. I don't think I had anything higher, but for sheer where I only had one movie that I said wow to, and that was The Perfection. So
gotta watch that.
Yeah, and I was not expecting that from a Netflix original. It might even be the best horror of the year of releases, but that remains to be seen because I haven't seen everything. I mean, when you're competing with Us and Midsommar, there's some heavy hitters out, but I think Perfection is among them.
Wow, that sounds amazing. There's when we talk about a horror renaissance, we are talking about a horror renaissance. There's some wonderful writing that's like kicking the ass of some of the dramas I've seen lately. Like horror's doing well.
It is doing well. I think that you have genuine filmmakers who are going, well, there's something here, and if you do something interesting and unique, you're going to get an audience.
Yeah.
Right.
And speaking of trailers where the movie let me down, my worst of the month, even though Santos and the Blue Demon was, I only gave it a 5 and I tied with another film, I still enjoyed for what it was. So my worst of the month was Brightburn.
Yeah.
Like I said, it felt like a movie made for me, especially with my comic book background and, the Superman mythos gone bad, but it just wasn't very good. Yeah, that one disappointed me a lot, and I thought I'd like that movie, and I didn't. It just let me down. It let me down. And Overlord was a close second, because that one let me down a lot, too.
And from what you said, it sounds like the movie that you watched doesn't really bear what I interpreted from the trailer that it was supposed to be.
Well, it's in the trailer, and I should have seen it coming, but yeah, it didn't deliver, which is funny, because one of my customers was following along with us. He didn't email me his list, but that was one of his favorite of the month. So it's all a matter of perspective, and I'm not dissing anybody who did get everything they wanted out of that movie. I just don't count myself among them. So that was my worst watch of the month.
No, that was one of those movies that started off reasonably strong, but just didn't quite deliver at the end of it, I just don't think.
Yeah. Overall, I don't think I had anything super terrible either. It was just so bad that it was glaringly going to be the worst one of the month. It's just a mediocre movie. And I had a lot of mediocre in there, I'll have to admit, but boy, that last week ended strongly for sure.
See, and you did really good this year, because usually it's you get one or two just stinkers. But
that was me this year.
But to have a medium be the lowest point, that is a winning streak.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was our 31 Days of Horror. That was our horror for the month of October, and hopefully we'll do it again next year. It is a lot of movies to watch, but we've been to a lot of countries by doing it, watching a lot of cultural movies, and I don't know, I think I was around 8 countries. I think Sam beat all of us.
Yeah.
He's probably over a dozen countries that he hit as far as his films go. And one of the reasons we do this is we want to bring attention to movies you may not have seen. I mean, a lot of you horror alumni have probably seen stuff, but we try to target stuff that you haven't, or at least a good mix of things. It's always fun, this trip of self-discovery, of discovering new filmmakers and new cinema. So a lot of fun.
And we didn't do one thing. We know Sam's theme for the month was child abuse. What was your theme?
Well, I had a couple of ones. One that perked up a couple of times, about 3 times, was where artists of some sort, either painters or musicians and that sort of thing, came up a lot. And Rich Satanists.
Rich Satanists, yeah.
So mine was a little weird. It wasn't nearly as dark as past years.
Struggling musicians and rich Satanists. You feel those two should meet.
Last year was cults.
Yeah, nice.
And what was your unintentional theme?
Cult/witches. A lot of witchiness.
Witches, yeah. No, I kind of wanted to get away from the cults this year because I hit a lot of them unintentionally last year, which I think was another reason I didn't do Midsummer, is I already got my fill last year.
Yeah, if you're sick of cults, do not watch it.
Yeah, and there was quite a few great ones that I had last year. So go check out all of our 31 Days of Horror specials, because I like to revisit them often as well, mostly so I don't retread old ground.
Yeah, I actually had to do that once this year. I'm like, I think I did this already. And I went back to my list, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I did do that one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's always scary when you're like going, you've seen so many movies, you're like, I think I've seen this.
Well, I think we're horrored out for the rest of this year. We might sneak something right near the end of the year, but we're going to get back to our normal comparisons and remaking episodes for the remainder of November and into December, and then we got a couple of specials during the holiday season before we take our season break and come back at the beginning of January. Of course, we'll always give you something, even when we're taking a break. So there'll be a couple of little short specials during the holiday season, and that counts as our season break before we get back to full episodes in January. But
we gotta have Christmas off, guys.
Yeah, but don't worry, you'll have something in your subscriptions during that time as well.
In your subscription stockings.
That's right. So make sure you subscribe. Your subscription stockings will be stuffed with invasion goodness. All right, I've been Jason.
I'm always Sam.
And I continue to be Trish.
And we are out of here.
That's all from us. See you next time.